It's not something that can be understood. It's not something that can even be made sense of. What I am speaking here today is not meditation. It is not self-realization. It is not enlightenment. Anything that we think that it is not that. The nearest I can say of what I am speaking about is simply life itself. What I am calling in this meeting, especially what I refer to as the fulfilled state. And the fulfilled state is not the idea that we have of fulfillment, or of sort of the idea that we might have of happiness. It is something much more simple, much more essential, something that is completely bare, that is none of these concepts. And it is here right now. Life is here right now. But what is life? Can we say what it is? All of our culture has been pushing upon us for thousands of years, philosophizing, religions, belief systems. We've been given this information. This information has been pushed upon every being from generation to generation as they have grown. And it is something that creates an experience in which then life is actually not seen, cannot be tasted, because the experience that every person is having, you'll hear me sometimes, I'm going to say the words you, or I'm going to refer to it as the person. But when I say you, I'm not saying you necessarily, I'm saying the person. The you that you think and experience yourself to be. The you that you think and experience yourself to be is the information that has been passed on through culture, through society, taken on, and then lived through. And this creates a particular kind of experience. And there are almost an infinite amount of different experiences you can have based on the information that you can hold. There are so many experiences you can have. The philosophies that somebody holds, the belief systems they hold, the ideas, the concepts, who they think they are as a person or an entity, what they think life is, all of these things, they shape and create a certain experience. Like a cinematic movie in their head. And this has been pushed upon all beings. It is almost inevitable that as a being is brought into any culture, the culture always is pushing that information in varying different ways. Now, we don't have to go into, who the culprit is, where that began, but we can call this information, maybe we can call it the world mind. It is this collection, it is the entire generational thought, experience, morals, beliefs, information, knowledge of humankind. Maybe even beyond humankind, who knows? And it has been pushed upon everybody. And then it creates a sense that, oh, I am the separate person. I am a separate person. An experience of being a separate person. The experience of being a limited entity. And then actually life itself, even what we would call that body, your body, that piece of life, which is the same as life itself, is one with life itself. There is a remarkable intelligence there. Your body is a remarkable intelligence, not separate from the one intelligence, life itself. But when this information is taken on and held and remembered, to remember means to put together, right? To remember something is to put memory together. A person is remembering who they think that they are every moment. As soon as they wake up, they are remembering who they think they are. So they're living through that information that has been given to them. Everything that they say that they are is not theirs. So what I came to see, I'm only sharing with you right now what I came to see, what I found, what I discovered, which was remarkable. I saw that there was no person here. I saw that there was no self here. I saw that everything that I thought that life was just this information and not life at all. I remember looking at a tree, thinking that I knew what it was. And then somehow, the whole information, the knowledge of the tree, the idea of the tree, fell away. And what remained is something that I could not understand. What remained is something that I could not know. What remained was something that was not an experience. It is a non-experience, if we can say that. Life is not an experience. The person bases its whole identity on experience and is an experience itself. So, for instance, we say, oh, microphone. We say laptop. We say body, male, someone else female, plant. This creates the experience. Cinematic movie. Hologram going on. It is like this laptop. This laptop is the hardware. But then we can end up downloading software onto the hardware. And it changes then the functioning of the hardware. The hardware is then not flowing in its natural way, you could say, in its default state. It is functioning in an artificial way. So what I came to see is that the tree, life, what we call this body, which is not the word body, is fulfilled unto itself, completely fulfilled. Which means what? It just means simply it's not lacking anything. It just means simply that it is not unfulfilled. How many of you or how many people think that they are unfulfilled? How many believe they have to do more, get more, achieve more, become more to be fulfilled? This is the nature of the person, because part of that information has created a state of unfulfillment. So in that moment when I was looking at the tree beyond the information of tree and that went away, in that moment it was seen that what we call this life, that life, is not different and is fulfilled unto itself, complete, whole, lacking nothing. You see, what you must ask yourself is, what is it that you want? What is it that you really want? Because anything you want, you can get. Anything you want, you can get. It is the nature of the person to want, to desire, because it feels unfulfilled. So it is trying to become something more. You see, what I realized is this life does not want anything that the culture, that humankind wanted it to want. It does not want what the culture wants it to want. It does not want what the person wants it to want. What is it you want? You see? The person is always wanting something. You're always wanting something. You're always wanting more than what the body actually needs. This piece of life can survive on almost anything. There are so many cases of this body being able to survive in the most extreme of situations, circumstances. Does not need all of the extra stuff that the person wants. Where's that come from? That is what the culture has put in. And by this constant want, it destroys the natural way of this remarkable living piece of life. And also it destroys nature, because we have to take from nature. We have to use nature, destroy nature. For what? For what the person wants, for what the culture has put in, you see. So you could say in some way what I am sort of speaking of here is really at the heart of everything, the heart of life. You see, I'm not against the information that culture has put in, because we need the information to be able to practically function. The information, you've just used information to be able to just log on to this call. Without that information, you would not know. You need information to be able to know how to cook a meal, to forage for food. So the information is required. But when the information is personal information, personal knowledge, personal memory, well, now this causes the unfulfilled state, restless state, where things are never enough. So you might have experienced that. You might find that you've found that things are always not enough. There's always a dissatisfaction there, a state of unfulfillment. This is the person. And the trap of it, the whole trap of that, is that the movement towards trying to be fulfilled is actually the one that keeps the unfulfilled state in place. I don't know if you follow that or not, but because there is a thought, if I eventually get to what I think that I need to be fulfilled is actually creating the sense of unfulfillment. They go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. So you see how that is a trap right there. The so-called solution is actually the problem. What one thinks of as the solution is actually the problem. All attempts to move towards a solution is actually the problem. And it is the culture, through that information, that has given you all these ideas of you must move towards this particular solution for your problems. But what I found is there are no problems apart from the solutions that have been sought to try to deal with what is perceived to be a problem. So then there is a trap, which means the opposite of freedom. Freedom is nothing special. It is the ordinary nature, the simple, natural way of that living body, of life itself, that piece of life. That piece of life is free. The intelligence there is free. But all of it gets mixed up because of the information that is being remembered every single moment by the person. What is the person? The person is that there is a sense there, oh, I am something. So the person is always trying to get something more than what the body needs. The person is also always trying to become something more. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed how the person is always trying to become something? Got to become better. Got to develop. Got to become enlightened. Always in a state of becoming something. I remember when I was at school, I was asked two key questions that relate to this. One was, what do you want to do when you grow up? And what do you want to be when you grow up? Both of those questions imply that there is something wrong right now. Implies that there is unfulfillment, that something else has to be done to get something more because what is here is not enough. Or that you must become something more because what is there is not enough. And this is the way that the person is functioning. Always trying to become something more because it has the sense, the experience that it is not enough. That experience is being created because of the knowledge, the memory that it is holding, that it is remembering, that it is repeating. The person is part of that knowledge, is part of that information. You could say it is the prime part of that information. The person is when you say I. The person is when you think me. When you think my. Out of that is born the whole experience that you are isolated from the whole of life. From that experience, then you're trying to get back to, oh, I must go towards the wholeness of life. I must become something. I must become complete. Or I must become at one with everybody, at one with life. And so then the movement towards that is actually just a perpetuation of being unfulfilled and feeling separate. So if you look closely through the person, there is always this movement, trying to get something more, trying to become something more. Also, what the person is always doing, what culture has taught you to always do, is to always come to some kind of conclusion. You always have to come to a conclusion about life. You see, the information is absolutely fine for all practical purposes. We need it. I'm using information right now to speak language, English language. What is it? Recently, I'll tell you, when I was in the Netherlands, just did a retreat a few months ago in the Netherlands, and there was a moment in the retreat where the participants were speaking and they were all speaking in Dutch. And I, not knowing Dutch, obviously could not understand what they were saying. It just sounded like noise. So this is a reminder that the language is what? The language is just noise. And yet you're putting the meaning to it. We've been taught to put the meaning to the language, to interpret the language, to say it is this, to say it is that. But is it really that? Or is it just sound? So for practical purposes, communication, to make a meal, to do some practical work, we need the information. But the whole problem came about through trying to understand life with this information. Because how can something that is so limited and finite as information ever encapsulate something that is so vast and infinite? And so you have no way of figuring out what life is. I have no way of figuring out what life is. Cannot be figured out. Does not need to be figured out. But there is a compulsion by the person to try and figure it out. So there is the looking and absorbing more information. Let me read more books. Let me watch more videos. Let me study more. To try to understand what life is, to try to understand who I am. But this living intelligence of life, this piece of life, does not ask those questions. So the person's always been taught to come to some conclusions about life. What is life? Oh yeah, life is like this. Or I am like this. Or it is like that. And then it rests on that conclusion. That's what knowledge is. Knowledge is a ledge of knowing. Knowledge is a ledge of knowing. It is something that the person is trying to stand upon. Let me stand upon this ledge to try to have a fixed position. As if the life can be known, as if this body can be known. All that can be known, I don't know if you will catch this, but all that can be known is the information, is the knowledge itself, is the experience there. You cannot experience what you do not know. We cannot experience what we do not know. We can only experience the knowledge that we have. We can only experience the information that we have. And so then the person says, well, what about that which is outside of our experience? Well, that cannot be experienced because it's not an experience. Because what is creating the experience is the information. The person is the experience. People often say, you know, the world is an illusion. The world is unreal. What is unreal, what is an illusion, is the person, is you. Is you as you think and experience yourself to be. And of course, this is completely unnerving to the person. I wouldn't blame anybody right now for exiting, getting out of this meeting, because it is completely unnerving to the person, because it wants to remain alive. It wants to remain in control, rather than just life operating and flowing in its natural way. The person doesn't want that. The person wants to manipulate and control. And so naturally we have a society where people try to manipulate and control, because there are persons that want to manipulate and control. But yet nature in its natural way just flows in an effortless, harmonious way. The person is always struggling. Everything is always an effort. Everything is always a struggle, because it's always trying to get something more than what the body needs. It is always trying to become something more than what is actually there. And it is always coming to conclusions, trying to figure it out, using so much effort, so much mental energy trying to figure it all out. The person fears not knowing. So straight away, it's quick to jump to a conclusion, to give it a false sense of knowing, so that it can remain in place. Have you noticed? Have you noticed how the person, the mind, is always trying to come to some conclusion? Some philosophy, some idea, some belief system. It's like this, it's like that. And now you have it in the information age. Of course, it has been there for so long in humankind's history, through the books and the scriptures and religion. But now you have the information on overload, because we are in the information age. 10 laws to this secret knowledge of life. And this is why this meeting, you could say, is maybe extreme, because this particular meeting is to expose all of that. To expose all of the bullshit of the person, which has been created by the culture, by the information that has been pushed upon every being. You know, we think of artificial intelligence like it is something new. But actually, AI, artificial intelligence, is this information that has been passed on and given. That's the original AI. If you want to control people, a populace, you just give them a certain kind of information, a certain kind of data set. And then it spreads like a virus, because then it goes through culture and generation to generation, and it is passed on by the parents and the education system and religions and government and media and so on. And so it cycles. The person thinks my thoughts are unique. My ideas, my concepts, my beliefs are unique, but actually they are the same old recycled thoughts, same old recycled beliefs of this data set of humankind that has been passed on from generation to generation. And so what I saw is that actually what we think of, what you may think of as yourself, is something that's been given and not something that is fresh or new. What is fresh and new, you could say, is this living intelligence. That body right there, that piece of life is completely unique. Completely unique. Have you noticed that nature does not do carbon copies? Go and look at anything in nature. You'll not find anything that is identical. You'll not find two rocks that are identical. You'll not find two leaves that are identical. You'll not find two animals. Even two twins are not identical. There will be some slight differences. But through this data set of humankind that has been passed on, it is trying to fit everybody and everything into a particular rigid mold. And you can see this at play in the personal information, the mind, how the mind is trying to put everything and pigeonhole everything. And that's why often as well, it is always coming to these conclusions. A conclusion like, oh, I am God, or I am the source, or I am the universe, or all of these are just ideas. They're just concepts. It's just information that creates a kind of experience. But all of that is not the natural way of that living organism. That living organism right now has a remarkable sensitivity to it, a remarkable intelligence. You put something into the body and it will assimilate it to become the body itself. No information can do that. But yet this natural intelligence does it, puts it all to become the body itself. It finds a way. Nature finds always a way. The person is also always trying to identify with something. I am this, I am that. The question of identity is something that is coming up more and more in culture. Now there are even more potential identities. Before it was, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a Christian, I am a Jew. Now it is so many other things because the person is always trying to find something to wrap itself around. That's how it tries to stay in place, to stay in control. Has to find an identity. And even people that are what you might say on the spiritual path, into spirituality, they're trying to find an identity through that as well. This is also the person. Trying to be a spiritual person. Well, I'm a spiritual person. Personal enlightenment. This is all a way of the person trying to remain in place, remain in control. So somehow, if a being wishes to be free, somehow if that living organism is to function in its natural way, in a natural, harmonious way, in the fulfilled state, just meaning that it is complete unto itself, self-sufficient unto itself. If it is to function in that way, then somehow the whole experience of the person has to be shaken off. Has to be kicked out of the system, deleted, because it has been downloaded onto the natural functioning of the body, and it plays over and over like a recording. Have you noticed this? Have you noticed that there is a recording going on all the time? This personal recording going on of information. And of course, most people say, oh, that's me. That's me. But what I saw is that there is no me other than the pronoun me. There is no I other than the pronoun I. Language. Just language. There is no self other than the word self. There is life. There is life there. Vibrant, alive life. A remarkable intelligence. But what the person is doing is it distorts all of that. It cannot be in contact with that. There's no way it can be in contact with life itself. An experience, the experience of the person cannot touch life itself. The person has never seen life. It has only ever experienced, seen itself, its own information, its own knowledge. That's the cage that it is in. And it just so happens that part of that cage is the state of being unfulfilled. And so out of that, society has created all of these ways for you to try to fulfill yourself. But it never works, does it? It never really works, does it? This is where one must be honest and admit this. The person is not willing to accept this reality. He's always striving. No. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe if I just go on this next vacation holiday, maybe if I just achieve this next thing, maybe if I just become this, maybe if I achieve enlightenment or self-realization or freedom, then my life will be so good, everything will be fantastic, and I will have finally arrived to the fulfilled state. But actually, the chasing for the fulfilled state is what keeps the unfulfilled state there. The person is tormenting itself. So these are four of the main ways in which the person is stuck, that you, as you think and experience yourself to be, is constantly stuck in this unfulfilled state, trying to get more than what the body actually needs. How does that manifest? How does that look? That looks like overeating. That looks like greed, greed of overeating, greed of money. The person is scared, it is afraid, so it needs to save more money, more and more money, more and more money. It has no ability to trust the intelligence of life itself, the natural way. I am not against, of course, I'm not against any of this. I'm not against the practical functions of life. Of course, this body needs some energy. Of course, this body needs some food. Of course, this body needs some shelter. These are things that is required for the body to survive, to function. But the intelligence of the body signals that. The intelligence of the body has an impulse for that. But the person has all of these extra ideas that are put in there, all of this information put in there. And so then its whole motivation is to go in these different directions, thinking one day this will bring fulfillment. Really, it is a move towards fulfillment, the disguise of moving towards fulfillment, when really it is a fear. There is fear there. The fear of, what if I don't have enough? Because there is a sense that there is something lacking. Because there is a sense that there is something that is not fulfilled. Because the culture taught each being that you are not enough. And that life is not enough. Don't trust life. Don't trust life. Don't trust this intelligence of life. Don't trust that piece of life, the body. You've got to trust what you can see, which really means trust what you believe, what's been given to you, the information. That this is the way that life works. You've got to trust that. And so this is what you see. You see it in the world, in the culture. This is what's happening. Through this person that most beings think and experience themselves to be, which is a product of the culture that has been passed on from generation to generation. You could call it the mind matrix. Sometimes I've called it the mind matrix. This is what the matrix is. This is what I came to see that it is. What is the matrix? The matrix is information. The matrix is information. The matrix is not really what you think of as out there. The illusion is not really out there, so to speak, because even out there is just information, is just knowledge, is just an idea, is just a concept, is just a thought. So that then is projected. The matrix is the information that then creates that experience of the person, which then becomes a self-perpetuating loop or trap or cycle that reinforces itself, that re-strengthens itself. Which only strengthens the unfulfilled state, the restless, unfulfilled state, that something is never enough. So you see, the society is built around that. It's designed around that, right? To perpetuate that. And this is where then the whole of nature has been used and is being destroyed in many ways. And where people will exploit each other, you see, because of fear, the fear that the person has that has come from that culture. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? They are reinforcing each other constantly, reinforcing each other. Somewhere the whole cycle has to drop, has to break. Somewhere it has to be shaken off. The living intelligence of this body does not want what the person wants. So the person is trying to always get more than what it needs. The person is always trying to become something more, trying to enhance itself. This is also very prevalent right now, isn't it? When it comes to, again, artificial intelligence and technology and transhumanism and all of these kinds of things. What is that coming? What is that coming from? Where's that coming from? That is coming from the unfulfilled state of thinking that this intelligence is not enough, that nature is not enough. And so the person thinks, I am more important than nature. And so it seeks to use everything to try to achieve more power. Can you see this within the narrative of the person? Can you see this in the way that things are functioning? I remember seeing about a couple of years ago a documentary where they went into this indigenous tribe, I think maybe somewhere in the Amazon, something like that. And they were interviewing this guy who was a member of this indigenous tribe that had been isolated from the most of the modern world civilization. And they were telling him all the things that modern civilization does and how they live their life. And they asked him, would you like to switch places? And it was an emphatic no. And you ought to have seen this guy. You should have seen this guy. This guy was so childlike. The guy was so childlike. I don't mean immature. I mean that the way that he was and moved, and you could see that there was no culture in him, hardly. Of course, there are a little bit of culture from his own tribe, but it was so subtle. And he was smiling and had the whole state of carefreeness and fulfillment. He was in harmony with nature, in harmony with his environment. But our culture, our society has done the opposite. We are in conflict, always in conflict with each other. We can see that with the constant wars, the constant fighting, the constant drama, always in conflict with nature by taking from nature rather than working with nature, working against nature. But it all starts with the culture that is taken on as the person. We even have in our legal system where it refers to the person all of the time, this artificial entity. It's a natural conclusion of the fact that for so long, beings have been, you could say, running on this program of thinking they are a separate person, that naturally you have a system then that reflects that, you see. And so also the person is always trying to come to constant conclusions and is always trying to identify with something. So what is being said really, in a way, is the movement that the person is always trying to make is what is creating the unfulfillment, is creating the unfulfilled state, is the effort, is wanting something other than how things are. And that is the nature of the person. Each moment you will find through the person that it is restless, completely restless. And it feels it has to satiate that restlessness. And the more it tries to satiate the restlessness, the more restless it becomes. It is quite a trap, quite a loop that it has found itself in. Any step, any movement to be free is the one that is in the way.